So it's almost a perfect storm when you build a home cost effectively and then you have a huge demand and there's no product on the market. The good product's going to do really well. So one of the questions is, there's a lot of builders that have built for clients that even in a short turnaround, they finish the home and then the homeowner maybe lives in there for a short time or flips it right away and they're able to do really well as far as what the build cost was to what the sale price was. And there's a few variables there, right? So when you're looking at a project that maybe has a lot of upside or appraisal value, a lot of it's dictated by the current market. So we'll give an example here. We've had a few clients that we built for that, in my opinion, were very competitively bid, very cost efficient. We brought a lot of value to them in the project and the cost of the home. So already from the beginning, just working with some of our vendors and partners and suppliers, the projects came in extremely competitive in a market where prices were rising and we were able to hold those prices. So that put our clients in a great position. When they moved in day one, they had a lot of equity. Well, then you compound that just through the pandemic. What we've seen is, as many of us have followed, without getting into too much politics, that a lot of companies have really strategically looked at their process, at their company. A lot of them are working from home, working remotely. Do they need this office space? So that allows companies to relocate more easily than in the past. In the past, a company to move, you're moving thousands of people and it's really a difficult thing to do. But now with some of the political side of either COVID shutdowns or regulations or increased taxes, you see a big surplus of movement throughout the country. Well, in Phoenix, what that's done, that's affected our market because now you have a lot of people leaving California, leaving the Northwest, leaving parts of the Midwest into Arizona. So what happens, you have a surplus of people moving in, whether it be for tax purposes, whether it be for, to have the sun that we have here in Phoenix, maybe less regulation as opposed to other markets. And so when you have this influx and it's supply and demand, you have a small supply and huge demand, so that drives up the cost. So it's almost a perfect storm when you build a home cost effectively and then you have a huge demand and there's no product on the market. The good product's going to do really well. And so we've had some clients that have looked at their property, looked at their investment and found it's a great value proposition for them to sell their home, and maybe now build phase 2, which is their dream home, something that they've really wanted, and puts them in a position to do so as long as they can find the lot, which is tough to come by right now. So that's really what it comes down to. When you think of building costs, there's only so much that can appraise at the current market. So if you can build under that with equity, you're always going to be in a good position because, we've seen even in recessions, 2008, now at some point, I'm sure we'll have one, but prices do fluctuate. But even if they fluctuate, material seems to always go up. I look at even in the recession, we had suppliers in 2009 and 10 raising prices, which didn't make a lot of sense, but what they were buying it for, they had to pass on that cost. So the material and labor continue to increase over time. So if you can find a good investment, you can hunker down and get it for a good price. It always sets you in good terms as long as you're in a position where you can hold that investment for a time such as today when the market is in a very healthy condition and there's a big demand. How do the construction loans work? How does that investment work? Are clients paying cash? Are they getting a loan? And so in some cases we have clients that pay cash, right? And they're funding it themselves. And so we make sure that there's an escrow account, a third-party account, a qualification of funds. And then that way, as we're going through the building process, we can bill on a monthly basis and know that the funds are there to pay for the work being done and requested. So that's important, make sure that you're always asking for a proof of funds or qualification, before you start a project, especially at a, if it's a big investment, a big scale, you want to make sure you're protected. just as if the banks would do, right? If they're loaning them money, they're going to make sure that their ducks in a row on a financial side. So there's also the construction loan. So the way the construction loan works is they set up a budget, they're pre-qualified, and we'll just use some easy numbers here. Let's say that their construction loan's $100,000. Well, the bank's going to approve them for $100,000, and they're going to pay. They're every 30 days, the builder's going to bill for a portion of that 100 grand of work that was done, and then the bank will fund. And interest starts accruing. So interest will accrue on every draw. So every time there's a draw, maybe $5,000 the first month and $10,000 the second. As these draws happen, that interest will start to accrue on a month to month. And most of these banks will do what's called a one-time close. So the client themselves, they're not making a house payment throughout construction, but interest is accruing on their loan. And then when the construction is done, let's just say a year later, 12-month build, that now all of the costs of the house, as well as the interest, gets lumped into what they call one-time close. And then now that gets put into a 30-year or 15-year amortization of what their monthly payment would be, and that's when they start paying, just like most of us would if we're to buy a house and have our monthly payment. And so that's how construction loans work. And getting back to the other question that we answered is that, yes, if your home today, if I'm building for my client and we appraise the house at today's value, and we're gonna build this house for 100 grand, and it appraises at 100, that's fantastic. And then a year later, we're done with the build. Well, now we get the appraisal and it's 180,000. Well, they've moved in with equity. They can work on their loan and refinance, and they have some equity there. So that does come into play, and that's where you see the value, because some of our homes are typically a 2 to 3 year process from pre-construction to build. And so there's some time for equity to build, for the client, especially if we're purchasing and contracting, at very competitive rates.